21, environmental issues, and I think we just started with asbestos. Okay, and that's as far as we got, right? So, asbestos, does it need to be removed from a house? If you're buying it or selling? No, it doesn't, not necessarily. Okay, sometimes a mortgage company will want some sort of remediation. If there is remediation, can you do it yourself?
No, usually
no. Okay, good. Lead-based paint. Who wants to, if there's lead paint in a house, what are our rules? Is it 6 and under, or is it 6? Under 6. 6 and under. Okay. So 6 and under, the house needs to be remediated. Okay. The gist of it is, no one should be living in a house with lead paint under the age of 6. 6 and under. Okay. There's several. You can again, if you have to remove it. It's younger than 6. Okay.
That would be 6 and under, wouldn't it?
That's what I'm checking. Does it say younger than 6, or does
younger
it say?
Than 6 are the words.
Okay, younger than 6. Okay, then. So who had the 6? You don't have a 6-year-old. Who had my 6-year-old? It was you, 6-year-old. Okay. Okay. So the reason why they have that age is that the central nervous system of the children at that age has not developed and it's not formulated, and so there's less of a risk as someone gets older. So. Now, I'm not advocating any of you adults eat the lead paint, but it's just not going to cause the same kind of damage for you as it would a child. Okay? And the thing about lead paint poisoning is it's irreversible. Okay? And there's stories upon stories about what happens. So, okay, so lead-based paint. Radon. Who can tell me anything about radon?
It's a colorless, odorless gas. It's one of the top cancer-causing things in the United States.
Okay, so it's a colorless, thank you, Paula. It's colorless, odorless gas. Tasteless.
Radioactive gas.
Radioactive. Ooh, we got the radioactive? No, it was radioactive. Okay, so that's what radon is. And honestly, lead paint has been like a hot button issue in real estate for a while. And we kind of thought that radon would be our next hot button issue. But here's the thing is that radon, it's not mandatory to get a home tested for radon. If a house does have radon, because you do test it for it, the remediation is like under $1,000 normally. But it is a very serious situation. The other thing about radon is in homes, the numbers can vary widely. You know, the number that we use as a number that it should be, you know, remediated on is 4 picolillies or whatever per unit. And I mean, I've seen them up in the hundreds. So it's like the numbers are kind of crazy on it. But it's not a hard thing to test. It's not mandatory. A lot of times at a home inspection, they'll do it. Okay? The places that they feel could have higher use of it is when there's a lot of ledge around, when there's foundational cracks where like the ledge could come in, is like the biggest things that we see. You know, does anybody have a good radon story for us? So like, all right, let's stop you right there. There are no stories at 4:45 p.m. Okay, save your story. All right, formaldehyde. Okay, which was used as an insulation in UFI, right? Urethra formaldehyde at UFFI. And it's something that there's a disclosure that has to be signed at every closing, that the house, whether or not it has UFI, is, you know, what we call it. The thing about it is that whoever used that insulation now is it's lost its power. So either way, it's not normally a harm to the consumer.
There's two different things. Formaldehyde is different than UFI.
Oh, okay. What's formaldehyde then?
Colorless chemical with strong, pronounced odor. It's used widely in the manufacture of building materials of many household products because of its preservative characteristics.
So what do they say to do about it?
Probable human carcinogen. 1995 has regulated the use of plywood and particleboard so that they conform to specified formaldehyde emission level. Doesn't say. Doesn't
Okay.
say anything about getting
All right.
rid of it.
I've never had a formaldehyde inspection. Has anybody? On a
I
house?
think they
I
put
think
that
it's
in
part of
there.
your air inspection, your radon
They
gases
put in
and
dead
stuff.
people.
Anyway,
They
interesting.
put in dead people to preserve them.
It's what I serve in my meal. Okay, so carbon monoxide. Let's move on. Carbon monoxide is again another thing that you can't see, and it's now in the inspections of the homes, wherever there's a floor of living space. I think you need a carbon monoxide detector, and again it's a silent killer, is what they call it, because when you have high amounts of it, you don't know that it's there. I mean, we've all heard stories of it. But we unplug ours because they go off from time to time. All right. PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls. I know that we used to have some in the Acushnet River. What else does it say about them? Cancer causing. Make the scallops good. Okay. Chlorofluorocarbons are. I know the things that you don't want to have in your like your styrofoam, and again I'm sure it's another carcinogen. All right, and then mold, which is a hot button issue, is the result of moisture and what? And air? What? Organic. See, this guy's. He's ready for the test, is all I'm saying. Organic food source. So so the mold in the house, many people are allergic to the mold, and causes a lot of allergies, a lot of asthma, a lot of issues. There's several different kinds of mold, but mold is one of the things that they'll check for. Okay?
One common misconception is bleach doesn't kill mold.
No?
Nope. Bleach does not kill mold.
It just bleaches it?
It just bleaches the color out of it, exactly. Yep.
Really?
Yep.
See? Look at that. We all learned something in here today. How do you kill mold?
There's actually a whole process to it where part of it is actually using Dawn dishwashing detergent, so it keeps the soap in the wood so the water can't be there. Funny, I don't know the exact process, but you can actually make a homemade
Dawn,
remedy
huh?
to kill mold.
Studies
You're
performed by
supposed to-
Dawn have shown us that bleach does not kill mold.
Yeah.
Dawn does. That's interesting. That's really
You
cool.
have to scrape it off the plywood or whatever, and then
Yep.
there's a certain ingredient that would kill it, and you mix it with Dawn's soap detergent, and you put that on the area so it can't come back.
Interesting.
But bleach will just
Bleach it out.
bleach it out. It's still there.
I will tell you this: mold needs needs moisture in order to thrive. And so a lot of times if you remediate that moisture source, that's why like they used to make the houses with vents, and then they made all the homes airtight for energy efficiency, and then all of a sudden you go up into those attics and there's mold because there's no air. So now they put ridge vents in and stuff like that.
Usually kills a deal a year for me.
Oh, it's a deal killer, yeah.
Kills a
Mold is a
deal
deal
a year.
killer. What?
Kills about a deal a year for me.
Oh, yeah.
Came
Mold.
up yesterday at my inspection.
Okay, so groundwater protection. There's a Safe Drinking Water Act, and I think we were just talking about that earlier, right? About that we have to have safe drinking water for everybody. Okay. Underground storage tanks. There's in the past they would bury oil tanks, and they would use the undergrounds. They would do it from there. And what happens is that when those oil tanks would deteriorate, they would start to leak and rust or whatever, and permeate some of that oil into the ground, and so that caused pollution and unsafe drinking water and that kind of thing. So there's always a question on, I think, the purchase and sales agreement if there's any underground storage tanks. There's a disclosure on it. There is remediation, and it's not really often a deal killer. They take them out, or they crush them down and fill them with sand. There's a lot of different things that they can do. Waste disposal sites and brownfields. Who wants to read to me the brownfields law?
Surprise.
Well, there was going to be, but no one's going to read it for me.
I'll read it, I just don't know where it is, okay.
Small Business Liability Relief and Brownfields Revitalization Act was signed into law in 2002. The Brownfields law provides funds to assess and clean up brownfields, clarifies liability protections, and provides tax incentives towards enhancing state and tribal response programs.
So what is it?
Looks like they put some money aside.
Well,
to
here you go.
help
He has a
clean up all
$25
those
card
areas.
for answering that for me.
You know
Thank
what?
you.
Oh,
Yeah, the
damn.
definition.
Brian's like, I'm just, okay. Environmental legislation, Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act, or CERPLA. There's a super fund that's available for environmental cleanups. The Superfund Amendments and Reauthorization Act is called SARA. Okay, you guys can read through those and find out exactly what they are. Okay, the liability for real estate professionals. Okay, the discovery of environmental hazards. Again, as I said to you before, you cannot unring a bell. So when you know it, you know it. Okay? In this case, you would, your disclosure would be about the property. Okay, environmental site assessments. Okay, we're not the pros on any of this stuff. So, you don't want to be the source of the source on any of these things. Environmental impact statements and disclosure of environmental hazards. Okay, so our role is basically to have our disclosures signed and reviewed to the best of our ability to authorize when we know something, what we know. Okay, beyond the unit, you're going to read your key point review. Let's do 2 questions. As of the fall, all the following may contribute to the growth of mold except
Can't see it.
I'm sorry. Low humidity, presence of EIFS, roof leaks, and improperly installed gutters.
Properly installed gutters.
Oh, I'm going to say
I would
EIFSs. I don't even know what it is, but
What's an EFS?
I don't know. But improperly installed gutter could make it tricky.
Exterior insulation finish systems is an EIFS.
Low humidity.
It's gotta be low.
What?
It's gotta be low humidity. It's
Low
high
humidity,
humidity
yeah.
causes.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Okay, one more question. A method of sealing.
You got it.
I just
All
saw
did was
humidity.
Yeah.
A method of sealing off, that was a good one, you guys saw humidity, I did the same thing. A method of sealing off disintegrating asbestos is called capping, insulating, encapsulation, containment, or contamination closure. B?
Encapsulation?
Encapsulation, awesome. Okay, let me bring this back.
One more.
All right, so we're gonna go on to our one that coordinates with this, and this will be it for the day. I'll try to make it last for you guys. Oh, she's got another question. One more book, and then we're ready to go. Okay, so environmental issues in the real estate transaction. Again, remember, this is our little blanket. They're always often the same.
Oh, they didn't read it.
Okay, the balance of legitimate commercial and residential use with preserving vital resources. Quality of air, water, and soil. Prevention and cleanup. Can you see? Okay. All right, Mass law. The Attorney General is authorized to prevent and remedy damages or natural resources, destruction, damage, and impairment. The statutory definition includes air and water pollution, improper sewage disposal, use of toxic pesticides, and excessive noise. Improper operation of dumping grounds, impairment of rivers, streams, floodplains, lakes, ponds, and other surface or subsurface water resources, and destruction of seashores, dunes, marine resources, underwater archaeological resources, wetlands, open spaces, natural areas, parks, historic districts, or sites, all addressed by statute. Okay, the Massachusetts Oil and Hazardous Material Release Prevention and Response Act is in partnership with CERCLA. If any toxic chemicals or petroleum products are on or under the soil of the property, the information should be given to the prospective buyer. If the owner suspects the presence of any hazardous waste, he should have an expert examine the site. In Massachusetts, the site inspection of toxic substances is called, Sonia?
21E.
Yep, Sonia just had one done. Site inspection. If toxins are present, arrangements will be made for the removal by the proper state authority. The environmental clean law is sometimes called the Superfund. Who's responsible? The manager, the transporter, and the generator of the hazardous wastes. If the responsible party cannot be found, the site owner or the landowner is responsible. The state will remediate and then record a lien. This lien takes priority over all other recorded liens. Because an automatic lien against the tainted land takes precedence over mortgages, most banks will demand that the property be inspected before they commit to a loan. This becomes a nightmare for the owners. Wetlands. Wetlands are legally protected property. Land in Massachusetts that is in a wetland or bordering a wetland is legally protected property. The Wetlands Restrictions Act is the Department of Environmental Protection, or the DEP, may draw non-encroachment lines around any waterway in order to restrict harmful or destructive activities such as dredging, filling, or polluting. The Coastal Zone Management Act and Ocean Sanctuaries Act both restrict the use and development of the state's coastline out to a 3-mile territorial limit. Okay? The Scenic Rivers Act and the Clean Waters Act and a wide array of air, water, and land pollution regulations protect Massachusetts wetlands from the detrimental effects of land development. Okay, so those are some of the things that help us with our wetlands, okay? Scenic Roads. Okay, the 1973 law recognizes that trees and stone walls that border local roads have scenic, aesthetic, and historic value. Any repair, maintenance, reconstruction, or paving work that involves destruction of trees or stone walls within the right-of-way of a rural road may not be undertaken until the planning board has held a public hearing and granted permission for the work to commence. Are you laughing? Do you know this for a fact? Has this happened to you?
No, I'm just, no.
Laughing at how ridiculous it is? Oh my god. Lead paint, we talked about this a little bit. The Massachusetts first lead paint poisoning prevention law was in 1971. Since 1971, homeowners permanently control specified lead-based paint hazards in any housing unit in which a child under the age of 6 resides. Okay, in 87 it was revised in 3 ways. First, improve the quality and safety of lead abatement work by requiring the use of trained and licensed contractors, relocation of the house occupants during abatement, and daily and final cleanup in units undergoing abatement. Second, the amendment sought to increase the number of units brought into compliance by providing financial assistance. This says a $1,000 state income tax credit. I believe that it's higher than that now, in a grant loan program, and by mandating the prospective purchasers of residential premises to receive a notice about the lead law and have the opportunity to get inspection. And third, the amendments embrace the universal lead screening, mandating physicians screen children and health insurers cover these costs. Okay, so the 1993 amendments, okay, so it's a 2-year interim control. Encapsulants are now allowed. It's a $1,500 per unit tax credit. Liability lessened with certification. The tenant lead law notification and short-term vacation of 31 days are exempt. Okay, removed or encapsulated. So here are the areas that we're looking at. Windowsills, stair risers, woodwork, doors, interior wall corners, railings up to a height of 5 feet. So it used to be 4 feet, but kids got bigger. Okay, any chipped or cracked plaster or paint must be removed. Flat wall surfaces normally do not have to be de-leaded. In short, the de-leading requirement applies to all multiple surfaces accessible to a child under the age of 6. Hey, Sonia. Do you see that little one after it? Owners or brokers of the pre-1978 properties may not discriminate against potential buyers or tenants who have children. Okay, property transfer notification certification. If the house was constructed prior to 1978, the state-approved lead disclosure form entitled the Property Transfer Notification Certification, signed by the seller, must then be signed by the prospective buyer or tenant, whether or not lead paint is present. The form certifies that the buyer has been informed of the existence of a lead paint hazard. Owners must, so it's the page before, I think.
No, I know, that was a different color, I'm sorry.
Okay. Owners must declare on the form whether they have the knowledge of the presence of lead paint. The buyers must also indicate whether a 10-day period of lead inspection is being selected or waived. The listing agent and selling agents must sign the disclosure indicating they have informed the buyer and seller of the possible presence of lead. Okay, so the lead paint form is very particular about where you check and where you initial and where you sign. And it has to be filled in exactly right. So I just want to let you know that. The fines are steep for realtors who are real estate professionals who do not do it properly. So it is worth your while to become educated on the lead paint. Okay, Childhood Lead Point Prevention Program is published by the Department of Public Health. Always, the real estate agents must verbally inform purchasers of the lead law's abatement requirement and the right to have a lead inspection of the property. When requested, agents must also provide a list of professionals who are licensed to perform lead paint inspections and abatement. If the purchaser wants to have an inspection performed, the seller must allow the potential purchaser a 10-day opportunity to conduct lead paint and risk assessment inspections before the purchaser becomes obligated under the contract to purchase. The purchase and sale agreement may or may not be contingent on the property passing the inspection tests. It is actually in the body of the P&S. If no test is performed on a pre-1978 property prior to closing, the purchaser has 90 days after the closing to have the property inspected. A purchaser is required to abate a lead hazard within 90 days of securing title to the property if a child under 6 will live in it. Okay, so those are our dates. Renovations, repairs, and painting pre-1978. Okay, a copy of the EPA's lead hazard information pamphlet, Renovate Right, that thing must be provided for all properties built before 1978 when renovating, repairing, or preparing for painting, rental housing, space rented for child care facilities or schools. The EPA requires that licensed contractors be trained and certified and follow lead-safe work practices. They must follow 3 simple procedures: contain the work area, minimize the dust, and clean up thoroughly. So as I said before, if any of you guys have ever seen like a lead paint remediation, it's like the plastic on the floor all around it, and then they wrap it all up, and it gets rolled up, and it gets brought somewhere. And I don't think it's New Bedford. I think it's like Holbrook or something. Somewhere in like Western Mass. Okay, asbestos material in good repair and free from any defects, including but not limited to holes, cracks, tears, or any looseness that may allow the release of asbestos dust, or any powdered, crumbled, or pulverized asbestos material. Anyone who handles asbestos-containing material must do so in a manner that does not cause or contribute to air pollution. Underground storage tank. No person may construct, maintain, or use any tank or container of more than a 10,000-gallon capacity for the storage of any fluid other than water, unless it is located underground with a permit from the marshal. Permit needed for tank removal. It must be drained, cleaned properly, and filled with sand, pea gravel, or removed. Owners of the underground storage tanks may be required to maintain a leak detection system, along with records of reporting of leaks and corrective actions. Fuel lines. Okay, Chapter 453, Acts of 2008, Mass General Law, Chapter 111, 127B and a half. Owners of residential property whose homes are heated with oil must have the fuel supply line covered with a continuous, non-metallic sleeve and have an oil safety valve installed in the tank. The upgrades are not required if the burner is located above the fuel storage tank and if the entire fuel supply line is connected to the top of the tank. If the heating system is installed after January 1st, 1990, or if a new tank was installed and fuel lines and fuel safety valves were replaced. Okay, so if you are following the slide presentation on the website, you can click on that to go find out that specific law. Old industrial or waste sites, Chapter 206 of the Acts of 1998. And here we go, brownfields. In 2002, the brownfields, give me back that 25 bucks. No, just kidding. The brownfields legislation became federal law. Under the law, state and localities receive funds to clean up polluted industrial sites. As of January 2004, Massachusetts had received over $30.5 million to assess and clean up properties that have been abandoned or underdeveloped because of contamination or the fear of contamination. Smoke detectors, Mass General Law 148-26F. You won't need to know 128, whatever this is, 148-26F, or things like that. Massachusetts sellers are required to provide buyers with smoke detector compliance certificate before the property closing can occur. An appointment must be made with the local fire department for an inspection of the property, and a fee must be paid. A fire official will examine the property to check that detectors are a correct type, in the right location, and working properly. A certificate will be signed by the official. The original certificate must be presented at the closing. I learned that one the hard way too. Okay, owners of certain residential properties are required to install both ionization and photoelectric smoke detectors. These include the following. Okay, so this all came from like near bathrooms and near kitchens, the smoke detectors would go off so people would like disengage them so that they wouldn't keep on going off. So the photoelectric and the ionization specify which is the appropriate smoke detector. Residential buildings under 70 feet tall containing less than 6 dwelling units. Residential buildings not substantially altered since January 1st, 1975 and containing less than 6 residential units. And all residential buildings sold or transferred after January 1st, 2010, which are less than 70 feet tall, have less than 6 units, or have not been substantially altered. Carbon monoxide detectors are required for all residential dwellings equipped with fossil fuel burning equipment that produces carbon monoxide or that have enclosed parking attached to the living areas. The law and regulations apply to all homes, not just property that's being transferred. Inspections for compliance are performed prior to closing by the local fire department and can be done in conjunction with a smoke detector inspection. If the inspection is done simultaneously with a smoke detector inspection, there is no additional charge. Maximum fees are defined in the law for inspections performed separately. Okay, Title V. You guys just learned about Title V, the on-site sewage disposal. So I'm going to skip these because I know that you have. You're covered, yes. Okay, so was that helpful for you?
Yes.
Okay, mold. Mold is a growing concern in all parts of the country. Mold can be found almost anywhere. Few states have enacted legislation concerning mold. Currently, Massachusetts has no legislation on mold. Not only is it a serious health concern in new building construction, mold is also an area of increasing litigation. So a lot of the schools that they made, all the new schools, and they had the mold that was all on the walls and all that kind of stuff. It's been pretty interesting. Okay, radon. No Massachusetts state regulations for radon. Again, there's EPA has issued guidelines, and it's a naturally occurring radioactive gas produced in the ground through the normal decay of uranium and radium. As it decays, it produces a new radioactive element called radon, daughters that cannot be detected by human senses because they're colorless, odorless, and tasteless. All right, beyond this unit. Okay, let's just do a couple questions and then we'll go. Okay, in the middle somewhere. Under what circumstances must a lead disclosure form be signed by a prospective buyer or tenant? A, the home was built before 1978 and has lead paint. The home was built before 1978 and may or may not have lead paint. The home was built after 1978. The prospective buyer has an influence. B. I say, yeah. Okay. In which year did brownfield legislation become law? 2002. Good job. If a house sale occurs in the month of February, Massachusetts weather is so bad that a septic inspection cannot be done, when must the inspection be done?
6 months.
C. Nice job. Okay, we're going to finish on that because we have a good thing.